All right, may the words of my mouth and meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our redeemer, and it is in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect tonight's message. Amen. Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, and Kofi, hello, the servants of Christ, Ma Shalom Che. Hello, everybody. I'm Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Thank you for joining us today. Appreciate your presence. Hope you are doing well. We praise y'all for your presence. Thank you for joining us again. We appreciate you. Some of you have been on with us multiple times today. And we thank you for doing so. Come on in. We're going to continue conversation about the question that was asked at the end of the live session this rising. And we're going to continue to go into what Yah has for us. Praise Yah. Hopefully everybody is doing as well as they can be. Trying to get back into the swing of things, coming off of vacation. A reminder, there won't be any classes tonight. There won't be any classes tomorrow, but will start our classes again on Monday. I'm sorry, classes tonight. Excuse me. There are no classes on Saturday anyways this semester. This semester and this quarter. But we'll make sure that we get that back on track. But thank you, everybody. We give all honor and praise once again to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out as always on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. Welcome, shalom, peace. Hopefully all is well with you all. Thank you for joining us again tonight. Come on in. How's everybody doing? How you doing? Big Brother Charles, third and final stop. I'm on Sister Nadine, Sister Sherry, Sister Monica, Coco, everybody who's on. We really appreciate you. Minister Tamara, hello. We were asked by somebody about tonight. We're going to discuss very polarizing topic, but prayerfully we'll be able to give it from a certain perspective where people will comprehend where we're coming from as far as being kingdom-minded. Somebody asked about interracial relationships, and although I know I need to be careful about what is said and how we speak on it, I am excited to be able to get into something that is something we should talk about, for there's many different perspectives on it, many different things people talk about. How you doing, Jason? And so we just want to kind of converse on that. Prayerfully, if you didn't get a chance to, like I said, I don't normally say, hey, make sure you go and blah, blah, blah. We just did this yesterday, but I really believe if you missed last night, you missed a doozy in many different levels. And we were talking about the Israeli conflict. And then this rising, we talked about men and how we could be better and greater and how we can become a blessing. Every man should become a blessing so he can command that which he is. And then it led us into somebody asking about interracial relationships. I kind of did a lot longer than what I thought I would, but basically we were able to kind of have some conversation and get into it. How you doing, Ralphio? How you doing, Sir Stephen? Hello, shalom, my big brother. How you doing, Drea? Hopefully all is well up there with you. We're excited. We've started putting some information out, especially to leadership and everybody. How you doing, Sister Judith? We started putting some information out. How you doing, Brother Omar? This is our the end of the year, October, November, December for us is where we hashtag finish strong. So we're excited about that, finishing strong in this year, looking beyond what we see and pressing and straining. So we're excited about that, and we hope that you guys can join us. We're starting to put a schedule together for the rest of this year, which is somewhat finished already, but trying to see about from the next of this year, for the rest of this year through the end of next year. And some things that we could possibly do as a group together. I've already heard some great ideas and some things popping up. This is ideas, so don't anybody be like, oh, we're doing this for sure. But we know there's a lot of people talking about coming to help out with the land stuff. Obviously, we have our holy days. Found out that maybe next year there might be a possibility of the sisters getting together and trying to do some kind of cruise or something. So maybe you want to, start paying attention to some of those things. Obviously, we want to have at least one meetup where everybody can come together. We want to start pushing even further to have more success as far as making sure that we're meeting up with each other where we are. So excited about all those different things. How you doing, Sister Mignon? But Shabbat Shalom to everybody. Peace. Come on in. Tonight, we're going to focus on the question that was asked earlier this rising, which is about interracial relationships. Now, there's so many different ways we can go on this, right? When we speak on interracial relationships, so many different ways that we can go on this. How you doing, Big Brother Allen over there? Very tall man, taller than myself. Praise y'all. I wasn't expecting him to be towering over your boy. But glad to have you on. If Sister Quotation is listening, praise y'all for you as well. How you doing, Sister Carla? So tonight we're going to go and keep our promise, keep our word. Thank you to those who sent a reminder about what we were supposed to speak on. If I didn't say thank you to you earlier today, please thank you. You said it's not done. I don't comprehend what it's not done is. I'm sorry, but hello to you, Half Baked Judah. Appreciate you. How you doing, Sister Sage? Hello, everybody. So when we speak on these things, and we have to be, at least I, being sent the way that I'm normally sent. And how you doing, Sister Renee? When we talk about interracial relationships, there's a lot of different ways we can go. First of all, we talked about this already, so you can kind of catch some of this on the end of the live session this evening. But as far as what the word race means, I want to start there, because if a lot of people go into this, you go, we're all the human race. You know, we're quick to try and squash it and not talk about it. It's not to be done. Oh, it's not to be done. Okay. I get what you're saying. So I want to start there. We talked about it already, this rising, but I want to start there, where first of all, that we're talking about interracial relationships, we must first talk about the fact of what race originally meant. I'm always about going back into original etymology, not just going into what we've changed things. Remember, when it comes to definitions, that means it's been defined. That meant before it was defined, it was already fine. So we should probably look at what people meant when it was fine. It was fine with the culture, the society, the word uses that it was used. So let's go back to what it originally meant when it was fine. Then it was defined, it was broken down from when it was fine, and then it has been redefined so much that now people are talking about race in ways that it was never there. So let's refine it. Let's get back to the original intent. That's what we always try to do and stuff like that. How you doing, Sister Oslin? Staying up late across the pond. Appreciate you. How you doing, Jay? So when we talk about the word race is talking about a competition. On your marks, get set, go. That's a race. That's what race used to mean. We've erased the meaning of race, but that's what it used to mean. It's just a competition. I say this all the time. My son, who knows, he was 8 years old, comprehends what happens when police officers come around, comprehends what happens with the diaspora, comprehends what people think about Yahashar, about Israel, etc. And yet still, if you come to him, he still doesn't. If you talk about race with him, his first response is to think about on your marks, get set, go. And he's trying to beat you because race originally was looked at as competition, right? What happened? And I'm not going to go over everything we went over this rising for the sake of those who heard earlier today. Long story short, what happened is over time, right, race became something where people started talking about, before they talk about animal species, they would talk about animal races. Why? Because animal races meant that animals were in competition with each other. That was the mindset. That was the scientific, so to speak, mindset, right? Right. Then after that, what happens is, and how you doing? I'm certified. Then after that, what happens is what? You go from that meaning to now it became competition that humans are supposed to be in competition with each other, right? And so now it became a human race, but it wasn't just a human race. It were human races. You're dealing with Carl Linnaeus, who predates, I'm sorry, Charles Darwin, right? So now that you have that going on, right, predating Charles Darwin, well, what happens after that? Charles Darwin comes along and takes this idea of races, and Carl Linnaeus said that white race was the top, right? The red race was next, the yellow race was next, the black race was next. He gave Latin names to it, so of course that means it's scientific. But that's what they were taught, right? That became the new thing. Then Charles Darwin comes along and takes it to the next level, and now says that humans come from races too, and like animals have race or competition against each other, humans do. And he expands it, and he names this book, that we go get the theory of evolution from. He gives a book that's published in 1859, and the book is called what? It's called The Origin of Species, the Theory of Evolution by Means of Natural Selection, or the struggle of survive. Sorry, the survival of favored races in the struggle for life. And it comes out of Linnaean doctrine, the Linnaean society. So Charles Darwin is continuing that. His cousin starts something called eugenics, right? And so now that all these things happen, you're seeing where race comes from. Now, if you add ISM to a word, ISM on any word makes it a system. So when you talk about racism, I know what everybody says. Once again, see, we've redefined what was fine so much that we have to refine it. We have to get it back to its original intent. That's what salvaging something is. Salvation is getting you back to your original intent. We have to get you back to refine you to what your original purpose was. We have to do the same thing with our word usage as well. So I'm talking about race, right? You're talking about competition. Racism, ISM makes the word a system, which means now it is a system based off of competition. But what was the system that was set up? The system that was set up was by Carl Linnaeus, white on top, black on the bottom, and everybody in between. And then Charles Darwin simply gave more in between and gave more versions of black on the bottom and more versions of white on the top. But at the end of the day, it's the same system based off of a competition. So it's never was based off of the human race, because the human race means the human competition. So if you're in a human race, you are competing against other human beings. So I'm not part of a human race because I need not compete against any one of you, right? I don't need to compete against the devil. I resist the devil; he flees. I don't need to. I don't need to race somebody to say that I'm smarter than you and I can show that I can do what you can do in the color of my skin, because I don't need to be you. My culture is fine the way it is. My name is fine the way it is. I don't need your name. I don't need your culture. I don't need your permission. Right? And how you doing, Sister Carla? If I didn't say so earlier, how you doing, Darius? Right? Race not against each other, but toward meeting the mark. Right. And you must finish your race, run your race. There's a crown at the end for you. Well done, my Taba and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. Let's make you rule over many. Let's put this crown on you type thing. And animals don't compete. They respect each other's boundaries. Yeah. I would even say that competing is something that's there. The lion's not trying to outdo the gazelle. The lion's trying to get the gazelle, if anything else. Right? The gazelle is not trying to outdo the antelope. They're trying to eat grass. They have a natural thing that says, let's eat what we have, right? But we don't have to compete with anybody, not just because we're original people, right? We're not trying to, like, people. First of all, the people is a nation, right? And if you consider yourself to be human anything, instead of being a human race or human competitors, be a human nation. But people don't want to do that, right? And that's where we have the issue, is that people don't want to acknowledge that there's a competition. Capitalism is a system based off of capital. What? Those who compete for the most capital, those who get the most capital are the winners. How you doing, Big Brother Thomas? How you doing, Sister Nadine? It might be too late. I got some stuff I got to do afterwards for family, but we'll make sure we reach out to you. If it's too late today, we make sure that we set some time aside tomorrow. So I'll reach out to you to check on you, but hopefully you're doing as well as can be. Hang in there, praying for you. Aman, I was trying to check on you and make sure y'all had what you needed, so we'll make sure we take care of that. Aman. But thank you for being on and pressing your way. Appreciate you. So we're dealing with race. We have to first realize that race has nothing to do with the person. Matter of fact, or the race has nothing to do with the skin color of the person. It became that when what people now call white supremacy came into being, right? The doctrine of discovery, which is why if you're not a certain color and you're not a Roman Catholic, when they discover your land, that it means they discovered it because you are not even considered to be a human. You're not a human race. You see what I'm saying? Right. But the doctrine of discovery leads to that, and then comes up to stuff like the white man's burden, that it is the burden of the white man that their God would have them to make sure that everybody acts like them. That's not me making something up. That's literally, something that people live by. You have stuff like manifest destiny, that it is the burden of Americans, white Americans, right? The new Americans who've changed the definition of what American was, to make sure that they conquered from sea to shining sea. That's manifest destiny. You have stuff like evolution that we just talked about, right? You have stuff even like the lost cause rhetoric, that after traders lost, they started trying to say, hey, we didn't fight for rights of states to own slaves, but we fought for state rights. But go look at what Georgia and Mississippi and Florida and Texas and South Carolina, right? Missouri, even look at why they said they seceded from the Union. They had to write a letter They had to give their 2-week notice, if you will, and say, this is why we're going to leave the Union and we're going to join the Confederacy. And they tell you straight up it was because they believed that chattel slavery was beneficial. They first of all believed that their God had ordained it, not that Elohim ordained it, but that their God had ordained it. And they believed that not only had their God ordained it, but it was mutually beneficial for both the bond and the free. In other words, the slave master benefited from slavery just as much as the slave did. The slave, therefore, benefited from slavery just as much as the slave master did. It's like in prison now, by the way, because chattel slavery is still allowed. It just has to be in prison. You have to be locked up. So that's why prison to pipeline is a very real thing. Or I'm sorry, school to prison pipeline, excuse me, is a great thing that they have. When I say great, I'm not talking about how awesome it is. I'm talking about it's a huge undertaking, right? Because they need to make sure that slaves exist. Black's Law Dictionary defines humans as a sea monster. Well, yeah, SEE monster. It says sea monster, look up monster. And when you look up the definition of monster, you'll discover what they think about you, right? So you have to look at what these things meant at the time, and you have to be able to look at that to interpret the law correctly, to interpret what they're trying to do with you, to you, against you, etc., correctly. That being said, I wanted to put that down as far as we comprehend what race is. So when we talk about interracial relationships, we're really not talking about what we're talking about, because if you're talking about should you be with people based off of the color of their skin, that's not as much of the problem as should you be with people if they are not part of Yahashara'al, or that should be the question, right? If they're not an Israelite, or if they're not grafted in, what is the danger of being with somebody? Not just based off of their skin color. There can be a lighter skinned Israelite than another. You know, mixed Israelites existed in the Bible. No, there's no way. See, we got to get past this thing. It does not, according to law. See, we're talking about law tonight, right? That's the standard, is law. Kingdom law, marital law, natural law, universal law, first mention, etc., right? And we're going to talk about law. Lawfully speaking, it does not matter where you were born. It matters who you are, or where, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter where you are from. It matters who you are from. See, you have to ask yourself, were Israelites before they were in Kemet? Like, let's just make it simple. And Sister Nadine, you on it too, but let's make it even simpler for a second. How you doing, Gwendolyn? Right? Was Israel before before they went into Kemet as slaves? Because an Israelite means that you can trace yourself back to Israel, trace yourself back to Jacob or Jacob. So before before Jacob was even called Israel, he was Jacob, right? But if we're going to talk about Israel, well, then guess what? Did Israel marry an Israelite? See, you have to first start in the right place. Technically, no, they weren't even called Yehashadal yet, right? So you have to realize that, right? So the only reason why we call ourselves Yehashadal or Israel is because we can trace ourselves back to Israel. That's it. But the first person that Israel married was not an Israelite. If he did marry an Israelite, we would say that that's disgusting. Israel did not marry an Israelite, right? Would you marry in because for us, sex is marriage, marriage is sex, right? Would you marry your daughter? Did you marry your son? No, right? No, you wouldn't do that, right? So Israel did not marry his own child. He did not marry Dinah. That's the only one he could have married in our culture. That's the only one he could have married. You said didn't marry Moses, an Ethiopian. He married a Cushite woman. Some would try to say that she's more Midianite than Cushite, with not realizing that you're still kind of talking about the same people, but nevertheless, yeah, right? How you doing, Holly Joy? How you doing, Lifeline? So Israel does not marry an Israelite, right? Matter of fact, There were two sisters, and then those two sisters ended up having handmaidens, and even those handmaidens, which by the way wasn't what Yah wanted, wasn't what Israel originally wanted either, even though he laid down for it, so we're not going to act like he's innocent. But nevertheless, that wasn't his purpose. His purpose was just to be with Rachel only. But even if you look at his bloodline is mixed. His sons are already mixed. They have to be. So when we have this complex, we're doing the thing that Charles Darwin and them did. We're not talking about the prism of what you would call interracial relationships through our prism, because once again, race is competition. How you doing, Battle Axe? Race is competition. So that's not how we rolled anyways. That's not how we thought. That's not how we still should think. But the problem is that we're trying to reverse the curse by being the curse instead of being a blessing. We want to do unto others what the enemy done unto us. But the golden rule is not do unto others as you want done unto you. The golden rule is Matthew chapter 7, verse 12 from the Sermon on the Mount. Do unto others as you want done unto you. And what's the rest of it? For this is the law and the prophets. If it's not lawful, then don't do it unto others, because it shouldn't be done unto you. If it's not what the prophets say, don't do unto others what the prophets wouldn't say you should do unto others. That's the golden rule. The golden rule is not just do unto others whatever you feel like doing or whatever you want somebody to do back to you. And how you doing, babe? My wife is on The Honorable Mind. As always, please check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. Hallelujah. Right? So you must recognize, you must comprehend, you must have an understanding, you must have an agreement with the word, and you must have an agreement with natural law, right? So race, the concept of race is the concept of competing, right? The concept of interracial to people means they don't look like you or they're not Israel enough, but you must recognize Israel didn't start off by marrying an Israelite. That would have been perverted. That would pervert the will of Yah. How you doing, Brother TJ? And thank you, everybody, for being on. Thank you for your likes, shares, subscription. If you give gifts, the things that you give behind the scenes, all that stuff, we appreciate every single one of you. Moderators, appreciate you. Bow down to you, the ministerial staff. Thank you for all the things that you do. Right? You said, respectfully, isn't the lineage begotten by the Father? The lineage is begotten by the Father as far as what? Are you saying that it was the Father's will? Are we talking about predestination kind of sort of? I'm not trying to come against you. I'm trying to ask because I know you're limited in what you can say. So I want to make sure I'm specific, right? So are we talking about the lineage of the Father as in he wanted, it was his will that Israel, Jacob at the time, would lay down with Leah, and he would be so drunk that he wouldn't even recognize that he would disobey the law? Now he can work out all things together for what is tabah, for what is righteous, for what is moral, right? However, that's not necessarily his will, right? Like he allowed Yehoshua to come through the bloodline, but was it his will that David would mess around and end up with somebody who, by the way, wasn't an Israelite either, right? Bayat-sheba, excuse me, or Bathsheba, right? That wasn't his will, but he can work things out for his will to still be done. And repentance has to happen, and purification has to happen for sure, right? Remember, Naomi had to be redeemed by her kinsman, by Boaz. And when Naomi was redeemed, then Boaz was able to marry the Moabitess, Ruth. It's through Ruth and Boaz that comes into being. Yahweh never forces anybody to be married. You know that, right? You know that it's your choice to be married. You have free will. He can present you with a wife, he can present you with a husband, but it's your choice. And the Feast of Tabernacles was great. Yeah. Well, we're working on a bigger video for everybody, for those who we're part of it virtually or part of it physically. And even Patreon members, we made sure that we put out a video just for you guys as far as the baptism only. But there is another video to come, just to let that be known. But that'll be for everybody to see the whole thing. It's going to be a long video. It's going to take a while. I got to figure out music and copyright and this and that. I might even just write some beats, make some real simple beats or whatever, just so at least we can have something that's playing with it. So, but it's going to take a while, but it's coming. Okay. Yeah, we did definitely stayed safe. We had a couple instances where it looked like a few of us were gonna be taken out through sicknesses, like, and not sicknesses by being there or any food or anything. Just it was weird. Like in one day, we had like about 5 people that had like either got hurt doing something or was doing too much and got sunstroke or was doing too much, and then we had to make sure that we got them under control and got them under the right conditions, but everything worked out well. I think that was like for a 5-hour period. It was really strange. It was like the second or third day, but then after that, everything, everything. I can't say anything else. The first day was really interesting because some people that were supposed to be there weren't able to make it, so we had issues with picking everybody up from the airport, basically, who flew in. So that part was a little interesting the first day, but we still everything kind of calmed down. And then that 1 5-hour period. Other than that, I think everything was perfect. Everything was still great. I can't deny, because even in that, everybody came together to make sure that everybody was straight. So that was really cool too to see. But yeah, it's interesting being out in the wilderness and certain things that pop up that you have to do as a people, as a unit, as a group, to make sure that everybody's all right. So it's very, really awesome in that regard. But anyways, that's I'm getting beside the point. So yeah, when you're talking about interracial relationships, once again, we had to talk about interracial things. We're talking about different groups of people, and we try to kind of lump that into interracial. Yeah, the Most High doesn't force us to do anything, right? You have a choice. Everything, like, here's something about Yah. We talked about this before. There's not one thing that Yah has ever forced a person to do, right? The only thing that has to be forced, and it's not even really forced, but the only thing that's a natural consequence is that you have to have consequence. So if you do something that's righteous, there's a consequence. If you do something that's not right, unrighteous, there's a consequence. For every choice, there's an invoice, right? So 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 it a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with this weird place of race, thinking that race means that they're not white enough, black enough, they're not whatever enough, they're not Israelite enough, they're not African enough, etc. Right? You said begotten, meaning by the earthly father's seed, not by the mother. All praises, hope it's clear. I mean, if that's what we want to do there, I mean, if we want to look up, I mean, we can look it up real quick, because I'm be honest with you, I have a blank spot right now in my head for that word begotten, but we can just look up begotten and what it would mean in the context that was given, right? Um, right, so and so begot this person, who begot this person, etc. So let's go to Genesis chapter 5, verse 4. That's one of the first places that you see this English word, by the way, not a Israelite word, but let's see the Hebrew word for begotten, right? Let's just go there real quick. And let's go to the Avodah word, actually. Let's go to the Paleo Hebrew. So we were talking about Adam, Adam Achar Yalad, right? At least I believe it's Yalad. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Well, so okay, so it actually been more like Yavalad, excuse me, Yavalad, not Yalad. Yavalad. Yavalad is what you would get begotten from. Yavalad means literally to bear, bring forth, distress, um, to beget, to be born. Well, so when somebody is begotten of somebody, we can be talking about the father, or if we're talking about distress, right? If we're talking about even pain, anguish, that can be of the mother. So it depends on how you're using the word. But yeah, it depends on how we're using Yavalad, or they probably would say Yalad or something like that in modern Hebrew, because of the different dialect and because it's not original. Um, but yeah, Yavalad is not necessarily speaking only about men, even though it'll say so and so begot so and so who begot so and so. But one of the things we forget about in the culture as well is two become one. So if it says Abraham, right, if it would say he begot Isaac, we know that he begot Isaac with Sarah, right? Like if it says Isaac or Yisaac, Isaac begot Esau and Jacob, then we know that it's talking about that he did so with Rebecca, right? So, matter of fact, when you look at the lineage of Christ, two became one for Solomon to exist, but technically the Most High never even counts it. He makes it work, but he doesn't really count it. If you go and look at at that lineage. So and so begot so and so, who begot so and so, who begot so and so. Whether you're talking about going forwards or backwards, depending on if you're reading Matthew 1 or Luke chapter 3, you'll discover when looking at the lineage that whenever it mentions Solomon being begotten, it says that it doesn't say it's David's son, or it doesn't say David begot Solomon. It says that David got with Uriah's wife, who begot Solomon, because Uriah was oft. So David never should have had Bathsheba, right? But Yah still uses it. He can work things out for his glory still, but he still has to be honest about it and say, hey, even though this is David's seed technically should not have been with this woman, because technically I never authorized the marriage, right? I never really authorized it, right? But I honor the seed. And I'll honor Uriah, even though Uriah wasn't part of it. And even though Bathsheba probably was in, if you read it carefully, it's kind of insinuated that she wasn't just forced. She probably was in on this somewhat, right? Even if she felt a little scared, maybe she felt scared. We don't 100% know her mindset. But the Most High says, I still have to honor Uriah, the one who was willing to fight with Israel, the one who was grafted in, the one who would not go back home to sleep with his wife and slept on the doorstep of the king. I will honor his position. I will honor his faithfulness to Israel, that he was willing to make sure that he died for his wife, and ultimately died for his wife and for David to break the law. David was punished for it, but then the Most High still allowed the bloodline to flow. So even when we're talking about this stuff, we can see clearly there's a lot of people, right, that are in this thing that are not just only Israel. Matter of fact, if we're going to talk about race, this colonial construct, this social construct called race, right? We have to also talk about, well, what about, as somebody mentioned earlier, Moses married to a Cushite woman, to an Ethiopian, right? To what some of you would now call today Nubian. What about Solomon marrying a Cushite woman and a Kemetic woman? What about the children of Yahashara'ah when they went into the wilderness and when they left Kemet? And a lot of people who were Kemetic put blood on their doorposts too. And so as they were in the wilderness for 40 years, their children and Israelite children came together. And you even have scripture that will tell you that people of Kemet are considered to be the children of Israel. And if you don't even look at, even if you don't want to look at his story, you can look in your Bible. And you can see in your Bible something really, really crucial. You can even see in your Bible, you'll see that it will discuss that there were times that Israel went to war against Babylon and others, and guess who would come a-calling? Kemet and Cush. Right? Kemet and Cush. I'm sorry, what is it? Prophecies regarding the tribes of Israel have been fulfilled by European. How so? What prophecies are you talking about? I mean, we're taking it there. That's not what we're necessarily talking about. But okay, if you want to go there, please feel free to make it plain. It's just kind of you just lobbing a grenade and then running away from it, and somebody else got to jump on it or whatever. Feel free to, if you're sitting here saying I don't know the context. I want to make sure I'm clear. Is the context that you're saying that therefore the European is the Israelite? Right. If that's the case, we should just say it like that. If it's not, then if you can just help me out, because it's kind of just lob something in there. I don't know what you mean, but we're talking about this stuff as far as interracial, and we don't want to be honest about it. So you're saying that, okay? So are you saying because Israel went back to the land of Israel? That would sound nice, but question for you: where in the Bible does it say that Israel is supposed to go back to what you call Israel? Because it's not even necessarily 100% centered in the same spot that it was originally in the Bible. Just like when they talk about the Wailing Wall. You ever been to Israel, been to the Wailing Wall? The Wailing Wall didn't exist at the time of Israel, just because people say it. There's a lot of stuff that people are talking about as far as things. By the way, you have to ask yourself, the people of who you're calling modern Israel today, do they fit the description as far as even Deuteronomy chapter 28? Let's just go to verse 68. We don't even have to go verses 15 through 68. You said not the people that are there now. Okay, show me in history where the Israelites left and scattered into Europe only. Show me in the Bible where they went and they scattered into Europe only. Okay, if you're saying Celtic people are Celtic people according to the Bible, you got to do some research. Celtic people according to the Bible are of the branch, or people might call tribe, but that's a demeaning term. So from they are from the branch of Japheth, Yavat. That's the branch they come from, right? And it's not as simple as black, white, this and that, by the way. You know, the further back we go into the story of mankind, the darker everybody gets. See, that's one of the things about race, too. You have to realize the further back we go, the darker we all get. Even the word human, humus man, whether you want to talk about Hue, or really even humus man, which is the breakdown of the compound word humus man, is talking about dark, rich, nutrient earth with a spirit inside. But yeah, check Spanish. Yeah, check what the Spanish and the Portuguese say as far as what a Negro is. And then look up what Negro land is. And then look up where Christopher Columbus went looking for the land of Asheroth. Right? Second, that's just chapter 13, verses 13. Sorry, chapter 13, verses 40 through 45. How you doing, brother? Yehasharal? How you doing, King Raj? You see, so we're already having a conversation. See, people are messing up with this thing as far as race. You're trying to make it about a color, about European. By the way, do you not even know that the word Europa, Europe, means it belongs to Rome? You know, Europe is not a continent. There's only technically one continent because everything's connected under the water. But the definition of a continent is a large landmass completely surrounded by water, right? So if you have a large landmass completely surrounded by water, what are we talking about? Is Europe a large landmass completely surrounded by water? Matter of fact, remember, it was Eurasia before that, and before that, it wasn't even called Europe. So what are you talking about, a European? There's no such thing unless you're talking about somebody who belongs to Rome. And that's what many people have done. They've tried to say that they are of Roman descent, and that's why they said they were allowed to do what they do. Hitler tried to do that. Stalin tried to do that. So what is a European outside of what somebody who was trying to falsify a term? It's like when somebody says white. And I'm not trying to say that these people shouldn't be looked at as all as human beings. I'm saying you're giving them a title that's not theirs. You know, there's no such thing as a white person, because the word white, before people started to change it, the word white just used to mean the absence of color. If you ever see a white blood cell under a microscope, you'll discover that you see through it. It's clear. If you ever look at polar bear fur and you see it, hopefully you don't see it too close up, right? But if you're ever able to look at polar bear fur, the inside of it is dark and black, but the outside of it is clear. It's reflective. It's see-through, so that the light can go through it. Certain things can be reflected, but also light can get through it to be able to get to the black fur on the inside, because black takes in the heat, right? So you can't have, right. If you look at a snowflake under a microscope, right? A snowflake is not white. It is clear. I'm sorry, a snowflake does not have color. It is clear. That's why it's white. White means the absence of color. White didn't become a people or a person, an artificial person at that, a straw man. We didn't start calling people white until you get to Manifest Destiny, until you get to the Pope, until you get to the Crusades. Really, that was when it really started to go down. Hey, stop killing off each other. I'm the King of Kings. I'm the Pope. I'm the Vicar. That's what the Pope, he's supposed to be the Messiah on the earth. He's supposed to be their Jesus on earth. So he said, hey man, y'all got to stop fighting each other. Go, you see those people, those black and brown people over there? They are the infidels. They are the one who stole our land. We are the people that the Bible talks about. It was a superiority complex. Some people might call it, you know, um, a white superiority or whatever. You said ready? Yeah. Guess what? If somebody's ready, I'm considered to be ready. Did you know that? When I use a straw man as a name, I do have a straw man name. My straw man name actually talks about being swarthy, which also means being ready. It means you're dark. You're so red. Yeah. You ever been to some places in Georgia where they have red dirt, but sometimes the dirt is so red it looks like it's black? Because if you keep putting red and red and red, you can laugh it's all day, but you don't want to be honest about it. I know what ready is because I know I know what these things are. I know you think I'm somebody random on here. I teach this stuff, and maybe you think that I'm not able to or whatever. But you know, the people who learn of me, the people who learn from me, and some of the people who were there. But see, in your mind, it has to be that Israelites have to be white. Now you got to ask yourself why that is, because you bring up David, which is very interesting, because David would be of the same people that Samson would be. And I know you're muted, but go ahead and take this with you if you want to listen to it. If not, feel free. This is not for you, obviously, anyways, tonight. But if David is related to Samson, what does Samson's hair look like? And what kind of people have Samson's hair? Did Samson have locks? If Yahashua is the son of David, and it says that his feet were the color of burnt brass that was burnt in the fire. You ever seen brass burnt in the fire? It doesn't even just say the fire, it says in the furnace. Matter of fact, Yahashua, thank you, babe, for that, because that was where I was going next. Have you ever thought about the fact that Yahashua was taken by his stepfather Joseph and his mother Mary, and they hid in Kemet? He was found there. The wise men, the Magi, found him there when he was like 2-3 years old. And when they found him there, he had blended in with the people. He was hidden there. What color are the people of Kemet at that time? Now we can say the rulership was different. It was Greco-Roman at that point, right? But what color were the people at that time? I give you a hint. They were pretty close to my hair color. It even says that they had hair like wool. It says that these people had locks. Matter of fact, we can look at Flavius Josephus. He himself an Israelite who described to what Yahashua looked like outside of the Bible. Flavius Josephus, famous historian who everybody loves to listen to when he talks about Rome, but when he talks about his own people, Israel, everybody says, don't listen to him about Israel. He's crazy. Why? I wonder what it is that we'll listen to him, and we will listen to him to confirm what we need to learn about what you would now call today white people, as if all Romans were white. That's a really weird thing too, right? Go look up what Julius Caesar looked like. Go look up what Justinian looked like. Go look up what Vespasian looked like. Go look up what the Emperor Septimius Severus looked like, or his two sons, because they were African. Shabbat shalom, Joseph. How you doing? So I'm just saying, see, you got to realize that, and so hopefully we're getting the point across, right? Hannibal, of course, Hannibal wasn't Roman. He was North African, but they had land that was up in Spain. Remember, they moved the capital to Spain for a little while. The Carthaginians, North Africans, but Hannibal was somebody who was dark skinned. So and yeah, they taught us that these people were white. Thank you, certified. Appreciate it. But that's what they taught us, right? Shabbat shalom to everybody. How you doing, Miss Q? So you have to realize that this is part of what's going on. Now that we've discussed that, though, back to the interracial relationship piece, because that was the question that was asked this rising. What about interracial relationships? Should we feel bad about it? Or there's somebody came on and just said they're wrong, period. But I think we kind of established that race is not necessarily what you think it is. Now, that being said, it's not, and this is what we talked about to end this rising. Race, so to speak, or somebody being of a different color, being of a different family, etc., right? Being of a different branch, whatever. That is not necessarily your thing. If we be honest, that is not your dilemma. Yah needs you to make sure that those who are grafted in, those that are Israel, etc., that they are living by the culture. How you doing, Sister Vivian? Right? The problem is the culture. See, that's the lack thereof, right? The reason why people look at white is different is because white people usually will have a different culture than black people. And especially if we're talking about ancestry, we as a people do not even know our culture and are just coming back into alignment with said culture. How you doing, Brother Vincent? How you doing, Sister Deborah? This is what's going on. Shabbat shalom to everybody. How you doing, Tay? This is part of the issue that's going on, is we do not even know our culture. And as we come back into it, we're starting to realize that our culture was perfect. We got away from perfection. Right? Romans chapter 10, verse 1. Paul says, Paval says, it is my prayer that Yahashua would be sozo, would be saved. He says, but he says, and Yahshua has a zeal for Elacham, but it is not according to knowledge, to intimacy. So in Romans 10:3, he says the problem that happened is that we got into everybody else's culture. We got into what everybody else was speaking on. We got into what everybody else said was righteous. We got into what everybody else's version of the Bible was. We got into what everybody else said made you great. We got into everybody else's hairstyle, right? They were wearing your hairstyle, right? Bo Derek was wearing your hairstyle, so to speak. I know it wasn't exactly it, but she was wearing your hairstyle and wearing your beads. And then they were telling you, but you can't wear that at your job because it's not befitting of somebody that makes money for their company. Well, wait a minute. If Bo Derek is making all his money off of what's yours, why can't you make money off of yours? But see, people are at ease with your scorning. Psalm 123, verse 4. See, now we got to get, if you want to talk about Israel, then why is it that everybody's trying to defend Israel right now? But when somebody like myself, who modern Israel has to still admit that my branch of people in Africa, they still have to admit that we are chosen. But they still will be at ease with somebody like yourself, who was on, the person who was on earlier, who was trying to say, oh yeah, but y'all aren't really Israelites. I'm E1B1A. If you want to go in a broader sense, the broader sense doesn't necessarily carry all Israelites, but I'm O positive. You know, you're supposed to be O positive if you're Israel. Now, interestingly enough, I would ask the question: are modern Israelites usually O positive? Now, I'm not saying that's the only way. I'm not trying to do blood quantum stuff, but I'm just trying to tell you, you got an issue. Are you O at all? Are you a E1B1A? Do you have, if you want to even use eugenics, do you have the same skulls? Because the African supposed, so-called African Americans that are buried in the United States of America and that are alive today have the same skulls as the slaves that they found in Kemet. And those same skulls are found by the people who are buried in Israel. Interesting. See, it's a cultural thing that's your problem. See, watch this. It's not so much that somebody's black, that somebody's white, that somebody's Spanish, that somebody's Portuguese, that somebody's Ugandan, that somebody is Uruguay, Paraguay, Chile, South Africa, Zulu, Kiswahili, et cetera, et cetera. It's not, those aren't your issue. That's not really your real issue. The issue is culture, right? The issue is culture. Yeah, and O is universal, right? The issue is culture. That's your problem. Is that your issue is that people are looking at what? At culture wrong. See, watch this. See, and I'm going to be very careful. I'm using colonial and social constructs. I get it, right? So hopefully you guys get it. I'm not coming at anybody specifically. I'm just trying to help you out, right? You're dealing with a cultural issue. If you have in the United States of America, if you have a white person and a black person, they both, as much as they want to keep trying to say you that's not true, and all these Republicans and Democrats are trying to get you to believe it's not true, and everybody who's trying to say that you need to be on the Jordan Peterson Western philosophy thing are going to tell you it's not true. The reality is that we have very different lenses that we see the world through, because our experiences are different, because the culture that we're in sees one greater than the other. You cannot deny it, because that's what this culture, this so-called country, we know it's not a country, it's a corporation by United States code, but nevertheless, the so-called country was built on that. We just talked about that, because you got to go back to who? Carl Linnaeus, and you got to go back to Charles Darwin, and you got to go to Darwin's cousin. Right? You are supposed to be on the bottom in order to make the system work. You are the enemy of the state simply by how you look. Right? Wear your locks if you want to, but you try to be on a wrestling team, they'll say, well, cut your locks off at the event, or else you cannot wrestle. Wear your hair and have them big old bubbles in your hair all day and play soccer all you want to, but they'll tell you, hey, you better take them bubbles out. You better make sure your hair is not hanging. It's not hanging the way the white girl's hair hangs. If it doesn't hang like their hair, then they can't play. Right? I've seen tons of white men coming to jobs with long hair, ponytails, this and that, and beards, unkempt. I'm not saying every single one coming to a corporation, but I've seen tons. But you better not come in like that. They say this is unkempt. I say this is natural, but it is what it is. You better not come in with your natural hair. You better not let stuff hang. They so busy talking about split ends, this and that, or whatever. You can't rip this out my hair. This ain't no split end. This is the way that it looks. It looks like water that flows down. It looks like fruit that hangs off of a tree. My hair looks like a tree. It looks like a weeping willow. That's why you work outdoors. Yeah, right. Like, but somebody would tell you that this is anti what? Their system, the world. The word world, cosmos with a K, it means system, right? Your hair follicles are connected to the same stuff that's connected to your brain. But we're the only people out here swearing by making sure that we get the fresh cut, shape up, blah, 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 this and that. And people don't tell you that you keep shaping it up and shaping it up. They keep pushing it back and pushing it back and pushing it back. Then you talking about I don't have no hairline. I don't know what happened because you're not designed. Have you ever thought about the fact that you as a brother, right? Have you ever thought about the fact a lot of y'all brothers out there, you cannot even shave. You got to work hard. I remember being in the military trying to figure this out and hoping and praying they would give me a no shave chit and they wouldn't give me one. I said chit, CHIT, right? That means I had to get paperwork permission to be able to not shave. And I couldn't not shave. So I'll be sitting up there or whatever and having to shave every day and having all those bumps. At one point, I was shaving my head because I was shaving my head too, and you get all these bumps and all these bruises, and you're cutting yourself and doing all this stuff, and you got to do it every day, and you don't look forward to it at all. I mean, you hate it. You know you shouldn't be doing this. You got ingrown hairs. You got bumps all over your face. You're feeling like you got craters on your face. You're growing stuff to where you got brothers that be having those black spots and stuff that grow on the back of their neck and everything because you got these ingrown hairs that just keep going and going and going and going. All this stuff, you got all these chemicals you're putting in there to try and make sure that you got a smooth head and smooth face and doing all this stuff or whatever. And you're killing yourself. You're killing your brain. You're killing your hair. You're killing your power. You're killing your promise. Sorry, you're off in your promise. Excuse me. I said that K word too much. Excuse me. Right. But if you live by that, somebody says, oh, well, we don't abide that. Have you even realized, like, when people get the Marine cuts for people of a certain hue, they're allowed to be flat top. The Marine cuts for you and I, they're not allowed to be flat top, but that comes from a chattel slave mentality. That's why I say it's not as important about the racial interaction as much as are you getting together in intercultural relationships. See, Ruth, as we talked about this rising, Ruth left her culture. She asked Boaz a question. She says to Boaz, she says, why is it that you would take me, a stranger, in to be your wife? Boaz says, I saw what you did for my family. I saw how you denied your gods. You said, I heard about you. I studied. I researched you. I didn't just approach you just because we are trained to be husbands and wives over here. And when I found out that what you did for your family over there, when I found out that did something that was righteous, and with your family, you made your family my family. And you said that you would throw away strange gods, foreign gods, and you will become Israel. You said that that Naomi's people would be your people, and Naomi's Elohim would be your Elohim. As soon as you said that, you were no longer a Moabite. You were now an Israelite. You said, did I grow up in a multicultural environment? Yeah, in a sense. I was able to be around my culture probably more than most. But yeah, in a sense, I did. I mean, I did grow up in the United States of America, so you could say multicultural, but the reality is that United States of America is not really designed to be multicultural. When people go home, you usually experience more of your culture, but many people that are going to school, you're not going to school to see a multicultural environment. School is not set up to where everybody's culture is recognized. You ever thought about the fact? I was thinking about this the other day. They will teach the language of what they say their enemy is. They act they Americans, left or right, act like they can't stand China, right? But they teach Mandarin in schools. Question for you: when's the last time they taught Avda, or ancient Hebrew, in school? They teach Latin. They teach Pig Latin sometimes. When's the last time that they taught Kiswahili? It is the number, some people say number two, others would say the number one language spoken in Africa. It's a business language. It might not be the language you speak, but a lot of people who speak business, we're gonna speak Kiswahili when we're over there. You might as well know. Don't be talking about counting out money, talking about 1, 2, 3, 4. You need to talk about moja and billy tattoo in it, right? You need to speak that over there, right? Africa is a huge continent. Several Americas fit in Africa. Multiple Russias fit in Africa. Multiple Chinas fit in Africa. Africa is bigger than South America, right? And yet, nobody teaching that, which shows that they will teach their enemy's language. Now, maybe you're saying I need to learn the language of my enemy so I can be against them. But peep game, they will teach their supposed enemy's language, but won't teach yours. Who's more of a threat to them, the enemy or you? How you doing, Lenora? He said school is set up to go into corporate culture system of the machine. Yeah, which is based off of what? Whose culture is that based off of? Who is the beast? Isn't that Greco-Roman stuff, that Babylonian benefactor stuff that they're sowing into you, saying that they want you to be better, but the reality is they need you to give up your name? Come on, Belteshazzar, they won't call you Daniel. Come on, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they won't call you Hananiah, Ananiah, Azariah. What's your last name? Is your last name Israel? Matter of fact, we didn't have last names. So what's your name? You had a name, and then the rest was a title. You had a name, and it said who you came from. But what's your name? You see what I'm saying? Like, if you have a last name, it's not because you came out of your culture. It's because you came out of a Eurocentric culture. If you have SON at the end of your name, it's because you're dealing with a Israelite name, a modern Israelite name, by the way. Oh, right, they are saying something that's about your culture, but you're dealing with an Israelite name, or you're saying that you belong to somebody, or you're dealing with a Scandinavian name. And we do become the enemy when we come back to ourselves. And here is the issue, right? The Bible is law and case study about us, right? From us to us from us, right? Here's the deal. So when you're talking about interracial relationships, don't worry about the race as much as the culture. You can, not all skin folk is kinfolk, not all Israel is Israel. There's a lot of Israelites who do not uphold culture. I can't remember his name, and maybe it's because I'm not supposed to say his name, but there's been this pastor getting all, and look, I'm not mad at it per se. I'm not hating on him, but I'm just trying to be honest. He getting all this love and all this play and winning all these awards on BET and gospel award this and blah, blah. And every time I see this man preach, you know what the first thing that comes to my mind is? And I'm not trying to be offensive, right? I'm just talking about culturally, especially if you say that your belief is biblical. Every time this man preaches, and if you're going to be that, especially as a Christian, Christians do just about whatever they want nowadays. So if you're going to be a Christian and you're going to be this, be that openly. But every time I hear that man preach, every time I see him stand, every time I see him do something, I immediately think that is not a man. That's a little boy, and he's not even a little boy. He's very effeminate. I don't know his name. I'm not even trying to hide his name for real, for real. The Holy Spirit must be hiding it from me because I keep seeing him, but I never see his name. It mustn't be for me to not, you know, call him out in this manner yet, or if at all, right? But so I'm not here to try and call. I'm just saying every time I see this man, I keep seeing him, and I keep realizing like there's more and more people, and I keep seeing sisters who love everything that's coming out of this man's mouth, and I'm saying to myself, this is not a man, not according to our culture. I guess you could say he's young. He probably my age, for real, for real. He probably a few years younger, actually. Right? I'm older than I look. My wife and I had that situation where older than what we look. I'm not that old. I'm a baby son. I'm 41. Just turned 41 on the 6th. But so he's probably a little younger than me. Now that I think about it, I'm never great at being able to tell people's age, especially our people. Right? But I'm just trying to say, I hear him speaking this stuff, and my immediate response is that's not what a man of Yah would say. That's not how he would act. No, he's a pastor. He's a pastor. He's a musician too. He said, so what I'm getting so far is that they're not born Israel as long as he or she is grafted in and a follower of the way it is all right to court and eventually marry. Well, we wouldn't even worry about courting them because we don't court, we don't date. You know what I'm saying? As culturally speaking, right? But yes, we would. No, not Dietrich Hatton. I know who Dietrich Hatton is. It's somebody else, right? Dietrich Hatton's got some issues. I think Dietrich Hatton is one of those people that's a contrarian, so he probably gets more hate than what he should. Obviously, he's not righteous in a lot of things he speaks, but he does say some things that are righteous. But I think he's just so worried about being that person that's always like, I'm going to go against the grain, that he puts himself in positions where it's just real easy to be like, come on, bro, again. You know what I'm saying? Right. Um, but there's a lot of cats, like I'm not talking about Dietrich Hatton. I'm talking this guy. I don't know his name. Seriously, I don't know his name. Right. I'm and like I said, it's must be tonight. I hear the Holy Spirit saying it's not for us to worry about his name tonight. I'm just giving you personally. I know that when I see this person, there's a lot of them out there that I listen to him and I start doing stuff. There's a guy, and look, I'm being honest. I like one of his shouts that he does. He kind of has like 2 or 3 different songs that he just kind of repeats over and over again. He can't preach that well at all. And I'm not trying to be mean. I don't know his name, but he's a bishop. He sings and he's famous for the shout that's like and I played it before on here. I'm not hating, I can compartmentalize, right? But he's famous for that shout. What is that? Oh, me and the devil had a tussle, but I won, right? It's like a me and the devil had a tussle, but I won, right? And it's like me and the devil, we can't agree. I hate him. He hates me. Me and the devil, right? Had a tussle, but I won. Whatever. If you've heard that before, every time I see that man, every time I hear that man preach, I'm like, that's not culturally, that's not what men are. You can tell, right? He got a gift. I ain't hating. He got a gift in singing. I don't think he should be preaching, but that's, to each their own. There's somebody else. He's getting invited. He getting going all over the place, whatever. Right? Kirk Franklin got some issues too. Matter of fact, Kirk Franklin started not only having some of the issues as far as being a little effeminate and stuff. I think I wouldn't give him that as much as I give others, to be honest with you. I think he gets a bad rap with that. I think there's just some things, he wasn't raised around a father. As people saw that special, I haven't seen the special yet, but the special is supposed to be really nice, or a really great, well done special about him meeting his father for the first time, something like that, and forgiving and letting go. But so I haven't seen that part, but he wasn't raised obviously by his father. Um, but so I think there's some things that happen to a lot of brothers where there's certain things that when we're not around our fathers, or we don't have a father figure, or we're not around men in a certain way, there's certain things that we do. And it's not always effeminate. There's certain things, brothers that overcompensate because they got to be tough because they never had daddy, right? So I'm not going that route, but I'm trying to say that there's certain things culturally that I can look at somebody and be like, Mike Todd is not the person I'm talking about. But I've talked about Mike Todd before, another brother who doesn't have a father. Matter of fact, one of Mike Todd's issues is that in our culture, you're not even supposed to be a rabbi until you are 30 years of age. Mike Todd was made a pastor when he was 15. Yeah, Bishop S.Y. Young is the one that I'm talking about. Me and the devil had a tussle, but that's not the one I was ultimately talking about. Once again, I'm not trying to make sure that we can corner this person so we can say this is the one that the pastor that's effeminate, blah, blah. I'm not trying to do that tonight, right? I'm just trying to tell you culturally, there's certain things I can see in somebody, right? Like when Kurt made that sound, even Christians saw that, so culturally something was off when he made that statement about the lion and the lamb will bow down to the goat. Now, even if it was ignorant or it was purposely done, the spirit was wrong on it, and people caught on right away. Now, a lot of people jumped on because they knew it would get them views too. But you know what I'm saying? There should be certain things that are culturally there. That's what you should be worried about when you're talking about relationships or supposed interrelational relationships or interracial relationships. I said interrelational relationships. Sorry, interracial relationships. You see what I'm saying? But yeah, Mike Todd does do a lot of things. Matter of fact, Mike Todd has not only very effeminate people that preach at his church under him as ministers or whatever their titles are, but he has people who are gender fluid. He has brothers that get up there that they literally one day or something and another day or something else, right? He's even given sermons where he said, if I was there, this is what he said. I'm going to use his terminology, not ours. He said, if I was there in the beginning with God, I would have said, God, I see that you made male and that you made female, but why don't we make something in between? He said that. He preached that. That what God, his God, not Elohim, but what his God made. He said if he was with his God in the beginning, he would have told his God, hey, look, there's going to be confusion. There's going to be this. Why don't you make something in between? That's what Pastor Todd said. And I'm not going to take Pastor of his name. That's what he's supposedly supposed to be. That's between him and Yah. But Pastor Mike Todd, that's what he said. How you doing, Brother Henry? But that's because he, once again, he comes from a place where he was 15 years old without a father figure. They made him the pastor, and he started trying to figure stuff out as a 15-year-old trying to lead adults. Culturally, that's not correct at all. He was 15. In our culture, you're not even supposed to be get your bar mitzvah, or what some of you call your bar mitzvah. You're not even supposed to get that till you're 16. Then you still have to be trained on what it is to be a husband, and then what it is to be a father. Then you're given your inheritance. You get in your work. Then you find a wife, and then around age 30, let's start talking about you being a rabbi. You see? Yeah, trying to cater to his best friends and stuff like that, rather than do what Yah says. See, this is what I'm talking about. See, this is the cultural issue. You know, there's pastors out there who have said straight up, any of you guys who are Democrats, I hope you leave my church. I hope you never come back. You're going to hell. Democrats are straight out of hell. If you're a Democrat at this point, where does the Bible say you're supposed to be Republican and Democrat? Where does the Bible say that you are supposed to vote in the kingdom? Right? Like, if you are a Republican and you say you believe in the word of Yah, you are not in the kingdom. If you were a Democrat and you say you believe in the word of Yah, you cannot be in the kingdom. You know why? Because you have a king. Do you know? And I'm not saying it's just because of my position, whatever position. You know that your apostle, your bishop, your presiding prelate, your those of you who have overseers, even your ministers, your whatever. Do you not know that they outrank your president? See, that's culture. It's not the mixing of races you got to be careful about. It's the mixing of culture. You're sitting up there trying to do something that doesn't even make sense because your vote doesn't even matter. But you're trying to vote and talk about if a majority rules, then that should be what you follow. And if a majority outvotes you, then you should have to bow down to it. But then you turn around and say, well, that's not my president. No, it's your system. That's what you signed up for, is a system that is antichrist. And when they vote on things to be antichrist, according to your system that you get your benefits and privileges from, you're supposed to give back. That's why you give taxes to the ones that are over you, your overlords, your overseers. It is not the mixing of races as much as the mixing of culture. You have a cultural issue. Your Bible never once says to get married, you walk down the aisle, you wear a white dress, you have a tuxedo, you make sure that you say, dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. Now, I'm not saying these things are off. I'm saying your culture never declares any of that to be marriage. You don't even know what a knocking ceremony is, but Yehoshua says, behold, I stand at the door. And if you don't know what that scripture is referring to as far as marriage, you won't comprehend the marriage you're supposed to be in with Yah. So here you are trying to marry somebody through something and marrying into the state rather than do a private contract that you can have Israelite to Israelite. See, it's not the race as much as the culture. Not all Israel is Israel. A lot of you are just like all skin folk is kinfolk. They look like me, so I listen to them before I listen to somebody else. Listen to the words. See, do you not realize even the Antichrist, the second beast, the 8 out of the 7 governments, right? Whether you want to go Revelation 17, you want to go Revelation chapter 13. If you're talking about the Antichrist, who has that 603 scoring six, not three sixes, but 603 scoring six. That means that we're talking about the number 666, or some of you might say 666, but that number 666, which literally is the number of a name. If you know what the name is, you know what Navar Kassar is. If you know what Navar Kassar is, then you know that Nero spirit, and that's the spirit that you're dealing with. But you're dealing with people who are in a different culture, and you're trying to marry into that culture, and then you're trying to figure out, why doesn't this work? You're laying down with people who aren't of your culture, and then you're trying to figure out, what are these soul ties? There's a culture, and every culture, by the way, it comes from a spirit, because I know you want to think that it's just a physical manifestation only. I know you want to only talk about it as energy. I know you only want to focus on melanin, but melanin is still physical. Energy is still physical. It has to come from a spiritual place through the soul to manifest, which means that you keep talking about the physical only, not realizing that every culture manifests through the soul, or the psyche, the psychology, the nachevash, and therefore it has to manifest through the soul coming from the spirit, which means that every culture you've ever encountered is a spiritual thing. You said so marriage should be of only equally yoked. Sure. Guess what the yoke is, though? It's not talking about equally yoked, right? As far as what we think equally yoked means agree or be the same. You are not equal to anybody. My wife and I's relationship really took off when I realized that I am not equal to her and she's not equal to me. There are things that she can do that I can't do. There are things that I can do that she cannot. And that makes us great when we realize that those two becoming one means that we're able to be yoked. Now it's the same yoke, but there are two oxen. You have one oxen that's young and strong. You'll have one oxen that's older, but older and wiser. But the older and wiser one is not as strong as he used to be. The younger and stronger one is not as wise as they need to be. The older one knows the command of the master, of the one who says, let's go this way, the one who says, yep, the one that says, yeah, the one who says, move, the one who says, things like that. He knows every command. He knows the language of the master. You who are not a farmer, you who are not a master, you who are one who is not over the animal might not even know the command. You might think that it sounds weird to go, but that animal knows exactly what that is. They're speaking a language, they're speaking a tongue that others who are not part of that culture are not aware of. So the older one who's more mature, when the younger one is not listening or doesn't know what to do and it starts freaking out, the older one is strong enough to say, hey, look, that's not what we need to do. If we want to be able to take this yoke off and be able to eat later and get this stuff, let's just go ahead and get this done now. Right. And if the older one knows what he's supposed to do, but doesn't have the strength to do it, the younger one says, look, I don't know what to do, but you said this is where we're supposed to go. Fine. I'll carry it. Let's go. Right. And they're both connected to the same yoke. The equally yoked means they're equally tied to the same thing. They're not, it's not asking for you to make sure that you're the same as somebody. It's saying be tied to the same thing equally. Put yourself in it the same way. There's one yoke. There's only one yoke. There's only one yoke. There's not two separate yokes. There's one yoke. And you know that yokes are designed for specific creatures. If somebody has a human yoke, it cannot be the same as an oxen yoke. The oxen yoke will tear your skin off because the ox can have it has does not have the sensitive skin that you have, right? A yoke that's supposed to be for two human beings is not going to be the same as for one human being. The yoke that goes on your shoulders is not designed the same way the yoke that goes in your head is, right? The yoke is designed for whoever is attached to it. So when there's two oxen being yoked together, they are not equal. They are tied in equally to what yokes them together. The second, see, anybody who has a company that's worth anything will tell you that if they hire a bunch of people who act exactly like them, the second that you hire a bunch of people that act exactly like you is the second that your company's not going to make it, because you need some people that think different than you. You need somebody that like we had Sister Renee at the Feast of Tabernacles, and my wife had this vision and this plan and all this stuff. And my wife just mentioned something to Sister Renee. Next thing you know, Sister Renee came with tables, came with printouts, came with tea and coffee and all this different stuff or whatever, came with extra cables and everything like that. Her husband came and with extra stuff and even had some different stuff to cook with and everything like that, and took over cooking one night. But it was just a suggestion of a little thing that tied in some other things. Guess what? She was equally tied in to the vision of what Elder Maya had, right? And so even though she was equally tied in, she was not the same, but she said, I recognize where you're going with that. There's some things that I can complete. Let me go ahead and tie into that. You see, that's equally yoked. Equally yoked is not talking about being exactly the same. Equally yoked is saying be tied in as much as everybody else. By the way, you're supposed to be married to Yah, and that's what you got to get in your head. If you're married to Yah correctly, you won't accept being married to anybody else who's not married to him. And you got to be therefore equally yoked. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. People weren't ready to go here, but let's be honest. That means I have to be equally yoked to him. Ooh. Are you as tied in to his will as he is? That's the goal. How you doing, Sister Keita? That's the goal ultimately, is can I get as tied into his will as he is? He will always be greater than I. But if I can be as tied into his will, that it means the blessings that are around him, right? When he's at the table and his cup overfloweth, it's going to hit me. See, if you get that together, then you don't stop. You're going to stop accepting all this other stuff that people call marriage, no matter what the race is. So yes, are you usually going to find people who are of a certain culture going to look a certain way and look similar to each other? For sure. But it's not about your race. It's about your culture. This is why the Bible keeps saying, hey, try not to marry outside of Israel. Why was it saying that? Because Israelites are supposed to have the same culture. That's why it says that. Come on, the crumbs from the master's cake. Come on, man. Come on, Brother Vincent. Right? This is why Israel was supposed to marry Israel, not because you look the same. It's because you had the same culture. You already were mixed race, so to speak. Let's just keep it a buck. If there's a war that happens, now let's get into some dirty terminology. If there's a war that happens and it's called a race war, and you have two people of two different races, who's fighting you? Who you fighting with? But if you're part of a culture that says that that's not our problem and we are going to get with people who are like-minded and have the same culture, then you don't ever think about that. Because both sides need to be defended against. Culture first. Culture first. Culture first. Well, look, I don't even know this person behind the scenes, so who knows how they treated people. But why do you think Tina Marie, somebody like that, singer Tina Marie, I don't know why she's coming up in my spirit, but hey, we'll use her as an example. Why do you think Tina Marie was respected by our diaspora? Because she didn't disrespect the culture. You know the only reason why people really have a problem with Eminem, outside of the fact that he's not, I wouldn't say he's as great as what people say he is. He's definitely not trash. He's great at what he does. But don't get it twisted. People didn't like Eminem, and people who don't like Eminem, they don't bring up all the stuff. Some people, it's as simple as, well, he's white. People don't like Eminem because he doesn't respect the culture. I'm not saying he doesn't know about it. I'm not saying he's not a historian. You can be about a historian about something, but you don't respect the culture. Right? When he was talking to somebody, I forget what his name was, and the guy went on Vlad TV, and the Vlad TV said that Eminem is a guest in the house of hip hop. He was being honest. He is a guest in the house of hip hop. He's a guest, not because he's white. He's a guest because it's not his culture. He's allowed to be in there. Eminem comes out and does a whole thing and tries to go against him and talking about, man, I don't care. A guest, I don't need to be a guest in your house. Matter of fact, I'll come in there and I'll kick over this and I'll do this and blah, blah, whatever. Then he tries to go on, what was it, with Sway or somebody? And he tries to say, man, of course I'm a guest in the house of hip hop, blah, blah. I never said I wasn't. What are you talking about, Em? You on wax. And there's other people who are not guests, but they are rulers over it. Because technically, as much as you want to say hip hop is yours, hip hop doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the Ashkenazis who own it. This is why Melly Mel, if y'all even know who I'm talking about, this is why Melly Mel has been anti Eminem, because Melly Mel was at the beginning of hip hop before anybody was putting it on wax. So he didn't really care as much about Eminem. Matter of fact, Melly Mel sometimes be arguing with Big Daddy Kane and people like that. If you know who I'm talking about with that, I know. I know, depending on your age, I might be stretching a little bit to say, but he argues against some of them. He might even from time to time argue against the KRS-One, but that's because for him, it's his baby. He was there at its conception. So he doesn't see hip hop the way you see it. He sees it as something that he helped to nurture. By the time you had Sugar Hill Gang, by the time you had Don't Push Me, cause I'm close to the edge, I'm trying not to lose my head. He was already like, this is too commercialized. It's over. And then when he started seeing that, hey, people took over it and said, hey, we're going to turn this into gangster music. And then somebody else came and said, we're going to come and we're going to turn this into whoop, there it is. And he saw so, and he started seeing it spiral out of control. And eventually, eventually, still in the 90s, by the way, whoop, there it is, the 90s, right? And then you had NWA 80s in the 90s and stuff like that, and all the stuff going on. And you had Doggy Style, literally something about a sexual position, right? And you're seeing this stuff happen in front of you. It's like a jungle sometimes, right? Yeah, I'm just saying, you started seeing this stuff happen. This is way before. Even by the time you get to stuff like, wait till you see my, oh, let me whisper in your ear, right? He's seeing this stuff happen. It's not just Eminem. It's not just Eminem. People getting this thing like, oh, he just hates Eminem, right? He doesn't like anybody that's not about the hip hop culture. You got to slow your roll a little bit. He's against people who are against the hip hop culture. He's watching his baby that he helped raise up. He's watching it, basically get drugged out, watching it get slutted out in front of him. Melly Mel ain't out there speaking against Queen Latifah, talking about UNITY. Yeah, and the rap stuff went with the prison culture for sure. That's why I started getting up in the 80s and stuff like that. By the way, you got to look at the CIA and Ronald Reagan and George Bush and Oliver North, et cetera, et cetera. All these people who helped to be able to push crack on the street and even gave you the freeway Ricky Rosses and stuff like that. That now all the people want to name themselves after. They want to be Rick Ross, but they don't want to realized that Ricky Ross was ignorant, couldn't even read, was doing the stuff or whatever, thinking, man, I'm making money hand over fist. And then he finally goes to prison. He teaches himself how to read, write, realizes how crazy what he did is, and gets his own freedom. So the one that they want to be like is telling us straight up, like, we shouldn't be like this at all. Like, we need to leave this stuff alone. It's going to hurt our society. It's going to hurt our community. It's going to mess us up. Right? He's telling us this stuff. We're not listening. Oh yeah, well, we bought into it for sure, right? This is why we're talking about it now. We definitely bought into it. That's why we got to talk about it. Our youth are affected by this, right? But anyways, I think we've made the point. I'm not going to go as long as I went last night. Praise God. But thank you guys for being on. Hopefully that answers some of the questions about the interracial relationships. It's not about the interracial. It's about the intercultural. And there's some things that you just shouldn't allow to be in your culture, period. I don't care what people say. There's just certain things that shouldn't be allowed to be in your culture, period. And if anybody has a problem with that, it's because they don't want to tell the truth. Straight up. That being said, thank y'all for being on. Appreciate you. We're going to do a shout out of sorts, but we're going to do a little worship and get ready to take our leave for this evening. I will see you guys tomorrow. We're going to talk about our sisters tomorrow, and we'll do a special podcast to continue what we're talking about with the sisters. Give you guys a heads up. What the Holy Spirit showed me is that tomorrow I would like for the sisters to call in, and I'll try to get perspective from what we've been talking about as far as the Babylonian perspective. So if you'd like to be able to call in, I will do my best, really from anybody, but we're going to be talking about our sisters specifically. So we'll do our live session tomorrow, and then at 10 a.m. Eastern New York time when we do the podcast, we'd love to have you guys call in and ask questions, ask away. We oftentimes say people aren't there to answer questions, or hey, somebody preaches a sermon or is preaching about something, and a lot of people are like, we don't ever get a chance to really ask about this or ask about that. Tomorrow's your time. I'm on. So please feel free to take advantage. Please feel free to be there with us. We'd love to have you, and we'd love to talk to you guys about it then. If you're on TikTok, we're going to get ready to do our shout out, a little shout out of sorts, and do some worship, and then we'll go ahead and take our leave. And I'll see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern New York time on Kofi_43. Thank you guys so much. Shabbat Shalom to you. If you're using Saturday as the indicator for when it's acceptable to do Shabbat. We appreciate you. I honor the King and Queen, each and every one of you, and I hope you guys continue to do well. So we're going to go ahead and get ready to take our leave. Thank you so much for being on. Thank you for the likes, for the shares, for the gifts, all the different things. We appreciate you guys so very much. We honor your journey. We hope that you continue to do great things. Hopefully, those of you who were supposed to receive the Feast of Tabernacles baptism video. Hopefully you got that, and we'll be having a Feast of Tabernacles video coming out ASAP. I hope and pray to have it to you guys. Some, hopefully I was hoping to have it by tonight, but it's just a lot of content and a lot of stuff I have to do to make sure that it can it can be allowed to be publicly shared on YouTube and other platforms we're going to put it on. But hopefully you guys are doing well. We thank you guys for being on with us. We appreciate you all. We're going to let the music play. And then you guys know how the shout out works, but this is more just so for us to worship today. I guess we'll have to be working out some time soon to fast. So whenever our next fast will be, so I'll try to make sure that we have that information for you all very soon. But thank you. I appreciate the King, Queen, and each and every one of you, even if you're not living inside the kingdom yet. We appreciate the potential King and Queen in each and every one of you, and that gift and that power that you have inside of you. Thank you so much for being on with us. We give all honor and praise to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out as always on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. We thank you guys for being on. We really appreciate you. We look forward to talking to you soon. Keep us in prayer. Not sure when we'll be traveling, but we'll be on the road soon. We kind of already are traveling, to be honest, but we haven't traveled exactly where we're supposed to be going. So keep us in prayer as we get ready to do that. We thank you. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Patreon members, we've been putting stuff out, and I'm especially to make up for taking a little vacation. So hopefully you've been checking stuff out on there, and we appreciate you. We honor your time, and I'm not going to take any more of it up. Thank you for being on. If you want to stick around and worship a little bit, feel free as the music comes on, and we thank you for being on with us again. Take care. Shabbat shalom to everybody. Peace. And if you want to come over to TikTok, if you're not on TikTok with us already, feel free to come over as we do a little worship on our way out. Thank you, everybody. Shalom. Shabbat shalom.